Happy Tuesday after Easter, and I hope you all had a happy Easter, even though it was a different one. But Jesus is risen. He is risen indeed, and there was no trace of his body to be found in the tomb, because it wasn't just Jesus' spirit that was raised; it was his body too, right? And as Christians, we often focus a lot or talk a lot about our souls or our spirits, but our bodies matter to God too. And one thing we're keenly aware of, very aware of in this time, is how much we need our bodies to be in relationship with other people. And if I had to recommend one book for you during this time of quarantine, it would have to be this one, An Altar in the World by Barbara Brown Taylor. In this book, she talks about how we can encounter God outside of the church walls. And one of her chapters is called The Practice of Wearing Skin, or the practice of incarnation, the practice of how to encounter God with our bodies. And I want to read just a short paragraph from this chapter and share it with you. She writes, "My body is what connects me to all other people. Wearing my skin is not a solitary practice, but one that brings me into communion with all these other embodied souls. It is what we have most in common with one another. In Christian teaching, followers of Jesus are called to honor their bodies of neighbors as we honor our own. In his expanded teaching by example, this includes leper bodies, possessed bodies, widow and orphan bodies, as well as foreign bodies and hostile bodies, none of which he shied away from. Read from the perspective of the body. His ministry is about encountering those whose flesh was discounted by the world in which they lived. What many of us miss in our physical dis-ease is that our bodies remain God's best way of getting to us." And I think what we're realizing in this time of quarantine is how much our bodies and being close to other bodies matter for us being in relationship with one another. And we do miss the ways that we get to be with each other. And I miss the ways we get to experience God together in corporate worship or in small groups. But we can still find ways of encountering God in this time that we're in, because our own bodies have been a primary way, a major ingredient of how we experience God on this side of eternity. And it's a major ingredient that we've sometimes discounted or forgotten about, of how we experience God with our bodies in this time. And it may just take some intentionality. So during this time, in quarantine, I invite you to consider, how can you be more intentional with your body over the next couple of weeks? We've certainly experienced a disruption in our lives. Things have changed. They call it the new normal. But there has also never been a better time to start over, to start something new, to start new habits, to start a new routine, to find ways to live in our bodies, to live with ourselves in some very intentional ways, to start again. And Easter was a time for God's people to hit the restart button. And that's what this time feels like, a time of disruption when we can start over. So let's begin again with some intentionality this season. Coming up with whether that's a new routine for you, new habits, just new ways to live in and with our bodies. Ways that will open ourselves up to begin again with God. And may God bless you as we go about this work this week.